Hello and welcome to 5 for the Future for the week of January 24th. I'm actually on vacation this week, but through the magic of advanced planning, I'm happy to share these top 5 signals of change that you need to know about in order to future-proof your small business. Remember, a futurist doesn't have to focus on only the most current events. We're looking for signals overall, not reporting on the news of the day. And a futurist isn't predicting the future, just pointing out small changes that could ultimately have a big impact so that you can be proactive rather than reactive. These videos combine all my skill sets as a researcher, small business consultant, and a fractional futurist, like the center of an amazing Venn diagram. Ready to get started? Let's begin with story number 1. China is all over the news. So what's going on? This is all driven by the fact that current leader Xi Jinping is continuing to centralize power and increase government control, which is having an impact on Gen Z in China and any aspiring entrepreneurs in the country. The economy is struggling, the population is declining, and the country is becoming more isolated from the Western world. Some outcomes from all of that could affect you. Chinese tourists are no longer traveling to big cities across the globe or spending on luxury items like they used to. And businesses outside of China are no longer willing to allow Chinese firms to have a near monopoly in areas like solar panels. We're at greater risk than ever from hackers affiliated with China's People's Liberation Army as they work to hack the American infrastructure, power, water, communications, and transportation systems. And all the while, we can't seem to stop buying cheap Chinese products from firms like Shein and Temu, who are cutting into Amazon's territory and undercutting Amazon's prices as well. But the success of these newcomers is based on a 1938 tourism law that allows merchandise under $800 to enter the country without inspection or taxation. It made sense then, but now it's giving these firms an unfair advantage over domestic business and making it possible for them to skirt laws restricting imports made by forced labor. Shockingly, a bipartisan deal in Congress might close this loophole, but potentially raise prices for consumers using those Chinese websites. Watch this space for more news as things progress. And moving on to story number 2, EVs and batteries. Let's start with the China connection. EV batteries are dependent on manganese, and while South Africa is where this raw material is found, China refines over 90% of the material to make it battery grade. As car makers work to lessen their dependence on China, they're trying to work with South African companies willing to take over the refining process that's currently dominated by China. But the makeup of EV batteries is still in flux as everyone in the market strives to find ways to increase range, shorten charge times, and more. If these researchers succeed with the redesign, it will also move us away from China's supply chain. In other EV news, guess who's making an EV in Ohio starting this year? Did you guess it was Sony? Yep, Sony is partnering with Honda to make an EV sedan with an awesome display called the Media Bar that you can customize with whatever information you deem worth having there. And Epic Games is developing the in-car infotainment system to offer 3D maps with augmented reality overlays and a Microsoft-based AI voice assistant too. US deliveries start in 2026. All that in-car tech is a good reminder that automation and EVs are creating new cybersecurity risks since your car is basically a computer on wheels. There are a lot of things that could go wrong if the controls of your car end up in the hands of malicious hackers. But don't worry, we're going to extend all that car technology also to fleets of driverless trucks, with the first trucks rolling out by the end of this year. What could go wrong there? Fortunately, at first, these driverless long-haul trucks will be accompanied by an operations specialist who can take over as needed, aka a human truck driver. Do you get paid more if you're an operations specialist? Just asking. And with that, let's move on to story number 3, space. You may have heard that NASA is pushing back its schedule for a crewed moon mission into late 2025 as they work to finish technology needed for the mission. And for-profit company Astrobotic Technology abandoned its moon landing attempt right after takeoff because of issues with the propulsion system and the solar battery charging system. But there are still other private companies looking to get to the moon this year as NASA continues to let private industry take the lead in design and operation of lunar landers in the hopes of staying a step ahead of other countries, like China, competing for resources on the moon and in space in general. One trending area in space? Anything to do with AI, such as applications that leverage, and I quote, powerful analytics and scalable AI to support human-machine teaming for improved efficiency across the spectrum of space domain awareness operations. Yep, that's a thing. And so is AI-based edge computing using SpaceX satellites. And satellites with hyperspectral sensors that can gather more data to monitor and perhaps protect Earth's environment from space. Wild. So will you be an early adopter? Maybe living in a giant cylindrical space station built by Jeff Bezos' space company Blue Origin? Or maybe attending a live concert in space? How does lack of gravity affect musical instruments? So many things we have left to learn. Are you and your business ready to take advantage of the rapidly growing space industry? And moving on to story number 4, the housing market and construction. How is it that housing construction has been the same for over 100 years? Not much has changed, including zoning issues and building the entire house on site. Is it time for an upgrade? Several companies think so. They're working on building components of the home in a factory under controlled settings and weather. Wall and floor and roof trusses can be made faster by people or robots when not on site. And new products can make a difference too, like adaptive roof tiles that help alter the temperature of the home depending on the weather, or cultivated bacteria that makes biocement, which looks and feels like cement, but is climate friendly. Meanwhile, our aging homes are not designed to handle our aging population, with a rapidly growing need for accessibility features like first floor living or single floor living, no step entries, and wide hallways and doorways that can accommodate a wheelchair. And all those millennials who left the big city during COVID are finding it harder to move back now that everyone is moving back to the office, as rents increase downtown and commutes from the suburbs become exhausting. The idea of a 15-minute city where everything is walking distance is appealing, but beyond reach, so perhaps we'll all be stuck in the suburbs, dependent on our car, and hoping that we can future-proof our homes as we age. And our final story, story number 5, housekeeping robots. Why don't we all have robot maids like Rosie and the Jetsons? Apparently, there isn't enough training data for robots to learn how to replace cleaning people. That is slowly changing as robots get taught using real experiences from real homes as opposed to virtual or lab experiences. Apparently, our real homes are a lot messier and cluttered than the fake versions. And if your current robot vacuum does a poor job, then I've got good news. New versions of robot vacuums can tell if the flooring changes from carpet to hardwood, work around your clutter, and clean up both wet and dry messes. Maybe they will actually work in my cluttered home with my 2 dogs. Speaking of dogs, who's ready for a ball-shaped robot named Bolly that can roll around your house, inspect the home, and keep an eye on your dogs, notifying you of any trouble they may get into, or even helping to refill your smart pet feeder? Bolly can also play videos on the floor to entertain your pets, turn lights on when it's dark, and come running to you when you get home. Bolly's coming to you sometime this year for an unknown price. What a deal. And that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. I hope these 5 topics get you thinking about how these signals of change could ultimately impact your small business. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and please continue to support my little passion project on YouTube that will hopefully help more and more small business owners prepare for the future. So spread the word, and thanks.